Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk you through how you would answer task 1 of the computer science pre-release material in pseudocode format. To summarize the question, you're trying to build a program that allows the user to enter in a type of sack that they would like to order. The sack can only contain cement, gravel or sand. The system must then check whether the weight of the sack is within an accepted range. If it is, then must tell the user that the order of the sack is accepted and what the weight of the sack was. And if it's incorrect, then you need to tell the user that the order was not accepted and give them a reason as to why the order was not accepted. So I've highlighted on the screen 2 key points to start off with. We need to store the weight and we need to store the contents. And we do this by creating 2 variables. The first variable is going to be a string variable, and this is in order to save the sack type. So I'm going to call it sack type, and I'm just going to initialize that as nothing to start off with. The second variable could be an integer, could be a decimal number, but the question clearly states that we're looking at decimal numbers here. So I'm going to declare it as a real, which is also another way of talking about decimal number. If you use different languages, you might find it referred to as floats or other terminology, but it's fine. So the real, I'm going to call that the sack weight, and I'm going to initialize that as 0.0 because there's nothing in there at the moment. Now the first thing we want to do is take some input in from the user. So the user is going to be asked, what is the sack type that you want? So I'm going to print on the screen a message just to ask the user, what sack type would you like? And then I'm going to give them the options of S for sand, G for gravel, and C for cement. Okay, whatever they enter into the system, okay, we need to read that into the sack type variable. So I'm going to read that into sack type. Okay, now we need to check what is it that they've put in. So I'll go on the assumption that they're entering in a sand sack. So if the sack type that they enter in is equal to S, now they might, when they look at the question, they might think, oh, do I have to type in S or do I have to type in sand? So I'm going to put if sack type is equal to sand, is equal to S, and because this is a string, I've got to put that in speech marks. Or they might type in the full word sand. Okay, then what do I need to do next? Well, what I then need to do next is ask them the weight of the sack. So I'm going to print on the screen what is the weight. Now we need to read that weight into the sack weight variable. So we're going to read that into sack weight. Okay, we don't need the speech marks, it's not a string. Okay, now once we've read the weight in, we now need to check, does the weight of this sand sack meet the criteria set by the question? So I'm going to check if the sack weight is more than 49.9 and less than 50.1. Okay, this means it's a correct sack. Then I can just tell the user, okay, fair enough. Yep, we just want to print off a message saying that you have ordered 1 sand sack. And then based on the question, we've got to tell them the weight of the sand sack. So I'm just going to put in which weighs, and then at the end of it, I'm just going to put the variable sack weight. So this meets the criteria for on the last sentence of the question, which says output the contents and weight of an accepted sack. Okay. Now there may be a possibility that they enter an incorrect weight. So we now need to check, was the incorrect weight an overweight or an underweight. Okay, so what we need to do is, if they've entered in an incorrect weight, so we're now working on the else section, we need to have a look if the sack weight was more than 50.1. Now, interesting point over here, because a couple of you have made this mistake. At the moment, if I was to leave the program as it was, the weight of 50.1 wouldn't meet any criteria. So I've got to look at the question, is 50.1 an acceptable limit or not an acceptable limit? And it's an unacceptable limit. So if the sack weight is more than or equal to 50.1, okay, so it's an incorrect weight, then I need to print a message. So I need a print message, and that message has to tell the user this is an overweight sack. Okay, now by default, if it's not more than 50.1 and we're into the incorrect sack area, then it's automatically going to be an underweight. So if it's otherwise, I'm going to print another message on the screen. Just going to type that in, and that is going to say that this is, oops, an underweight sack. Okay, so the user gets the message that this is an underweight sack. Now let's just have a look at the question again. I'm just going to reiterate this again line by line so we know what's going on. We've declared our variables at the start. That meets this criteria over here. We then print a message, what type of sack would you like? We then read the sack type. We check, is it the sand? Now if it is the sand, saying based on this sentence here, it has to be within that range. So we get the weight in, we read it into the sack weight variable, which is the real variable that we declared over here. And then we check, is it within the range? Is it more than that and less than that? Well, if it is, then you print off that you've ordered one sack of sand, and you output the sack weight, which meets this criteria over here. Now we just need to check for the incorrect sack. So if the sack is more than 49.9 and less than 50.1, okay, it's correct. Otherwise, we need to check whether it's overweight or underweight. Now if it's more than 50.1, by default, we know it'll be an overweight sack. And if it's not an overweight sack, the only thing that can be left is that it will be an underweight sack. And this sentence over here, okay, deals with this section over here. Now, the other options available to the user are gravel and cement. So we would just basically take the code, okay, from here onwards, because the user enters the information in here, and it's just the same code again that we paste over here, and we just change the S. Let's have a look. So gravel is the same, so we're going to put the S to a G, and we're going to move that into gravel, and it checks the weight, it checks that's all correct. You have ordered one gravel sack, and that's the same for as sand. The only thing we've changed is the sands to gravels. The next one along, the cement one, okay, we're going to copy this again, okay, and we're just going to paste it over here, and let's add a space in there, and this time we're going to change everything for cement, and the same thing over here. Now slight difference here, because the range of acceptability is different. The range here is 24.9 and 25.1, so we've just got to change these, okay, and if it's more than 25.1, it will be overweight, otherwise it will be underweight. Oops, done on the wrong one. Okay, so it's more than 24.9. Okay, now the last thing we need is what happens if the user doesn't type anything close to gravel, sand or cement. So then we need an error message at the end here. Now the problem we have at the moment is it's going to check, the computer is going to check if it's that, then it's going to check if it's that, then it's going to check if it's that. We don't need it to check all three. If it's that, then it just needs to move on. So we're going to change these ifs to an else if. So it does that bit of code over there. If it's not that, else it does this, and then else it does this. Now if it doesn't meet any of these three sections of code, then it's going to be incorrect. So my last one is just going to be an else, and I'm just going to print off here a little message that says the SAC type you have entered is not correct. Okay, because it doesn't meet C or cement, it doesn't meet G or gravel, and it doesn't meet S or sand. Therefore, they must have typed in something else, and so that we want to let the user know that this is not accepted. And that's basically how you answer task 1 of the pre-release material.